From VOA, Learning English, this is the Science Report. A shopping center in Brazil is growing vegetables on its rooftop using waste collected from the mall's restaurants. The garden is on the roof of the Eldorado shopping center in Sao Paulo. Workers there use trash from the restaurants to create compost for the garden. Compost is a decayed mixture of plants or vegetables that is used to improve the soil in a garden. A spokesman for the mall says that the waste from 10,000 meals served each day in its food court goes into the compost. Workers grow different kinds of fruits and vegetables on the rooftop garden, including tomatoes, lettuce, and eggplant. The fruits and vegetables grown there provide free food for the employees. Mall officials also hope to reduce the amount of waste that would end up in a garbage dump. Cicero Evangelista leads the waste recycling effort. He says about 400 kilograms of organic waste are created every day from the mall's food court. That is an area where many small restaurants share a large dining area for the mall customers. Mr. Evangelista says workers weigh the material and add enzymes to eliminate bacteria, reduce humidity, and speed up decomposition. It is how they turn organic waste into organic compost. Officials at the shopping center held workshops for employees to learn how to best collect waste from their stores. Mall employees say the project reuses waste food to make food and reduces the shopping center's carbon footprint at the same time. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Scientists are developing a medical device that could tell them more about the human body. It will help them develop more effective treatments for cancer, heart disease, and brain disorders. PET scanners now give doctors images of only parts of the body. This new device would be the world's first full-body PET scanner. PET stands for positron emission tomography. These scanners create three-dimensional images of what is happening inside the body. Researchers are calling the large scanner they are developing Explorer. It will show images of what is happening inside the entire human body that have never been seen before. The U.S. National Institutes of Health gave a research team at the University of California at Davis $15.5 million to build the scanner. Ramzi Badawi is a professor of radiology at UC Davis. He says the scanner will give researchers new information about how human organs work together. PET scans show doctors how organs and tissues are working on a molecular level. These images help them identify and follow diseases. The new scanner will help them do that even better. A complete view could help researchers develop new medicines that target diseases and parts of the body. It could help doctors reduce harmful side effects by following the movement of medicines through the body. The researchers hope to test the Explorer with humans in 3 years. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. The Blue Point oyster is returning to the Great South Bay of New York after almost disappearing from the world marketplace. Overharvesting, pollution, and Hurricane Sandy had severely damaged the Blue Point oyster business. Now, the population is growing on the coast of Long Island, about 100 kilometers from New York City. When the huge ocean storm called Sandy hit Long Island in 2013, it destroyed the Blue Point oyster beds. John Cochran is a councilman in the town of Islip. He helped pass a measure to rent 1,200 hectares of the Great South Bay to shellfish businesses. 23 local fishermen, including the Cochran family, have signed up so far. The Great Atlantic Shellfish Farms Company will be a major part of regrowing the oyster population in the Great South Bay. Marty Burns is an aquaculturist with the company. He is responsible for getting adult oysters to spawn, lay eggs, and produce larvae that turn into millions of oysters. He puts them in large tanks filled with salt water. The larvae absorb their food for about 2.5 weeks. After 6 weeks, many millions of these little oysters are taken to farms in the bay and placed in wire boxes to grow. In 18 months, these oysters will be ready for market. Doug Winter is president of Great Atlantic. He says the business is much better than the bay bottom harvesting of the 1800s. Mr. Winter says people can produce a lot more oysters in an environmentally friendly way. And the oysters are not just good to eat, they are also good for the water. Each oyster filters more than 150 liters of water a day, removing algae and nitrogen. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Ministers from 195 countries signed an agreement at the Paris Climate Change Conference. The Paris Agreement, headed by the United Nations, aims to slow the pace of global warming. It asks all countries to limit their greenhouse gas emissions. And it provides $100 billion in climate investment to poorer countries. President Obama said the agreement is the best chance we've had to save the one planet that we've got. French President François Hollande called the agreement a major act for humanity. India, China, Saudi Arabia, and Malaysia initially opposed the agreement. These nations' economies are dependent on fossil fuels, and the change to cleaner energy will be costly. The four nations argued that rich nations should carry more of the economic load. There was also some resistance from African nations, but the agreement included promises of billions of dollars for Africa to help pay for green energy projects. Edna Malawa is South Africa's environment minister. She said her country never expected a perfect agreement. She said the negotiations were a situation of give and take. The final deal calls for limiting a temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius to slow global warming. Developing nations did not get the compensation they had demanded, but organizers call the deal historic. They say it likely marks a new time of common worldwide efforts on climate change. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. A 4-year-long study discovered that plankton are a major supplier of oxygen on our planet. They are a group of different small ocean animals and algae, bacteria, and other organisms. They live close to the water's surface in oceans, seas, and lakes. Plankton cannot be seen without a microscope, but they are the main source of food for larger animals, like whales. Recently, 200 scientists from 45 countries took turns researching plankton on a boat. The scientists collected 35,000 plankton samples. They followed the lives of plankton, examined their genetic material, and watched their movements. A French nonprofit group called Terra Expeditions launched the project, known as Terra Oceans. Chris Bowler was the project's scientific coordinator. He says the researchers found that plankton are very important to the health of our planet. He says they make the oxygen we breathe and remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Mr. Bowler says almost half of the oxygen we breathe comes from very small algae called diatoms. These plants live in the part of the ocean that receives sunlight. Romain Troublé is the executive director of Terra Oceans. He believes the study shows that the ocean is the Earth's climate machine. He says the ocean is a main driver of climate change in the way that the ocean is storing carbon dioxide and heat. The machinery works, he says, because the ocean is in good health. Results of the study appeared in the online scientific journal Science. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans. From VOA, Learning English, this is the Science Report. Cambodia grows enough rice to feed its people. But millions still lack vitamins and minerals. This lack of micronutrients affects mental and physical development and can cause lifelong problems. Tim Green is a nutrition expert from Canada's University of British Columbia. He led a food project in rural Cambodia. Mr. Green says diversity, or many kinds of foods, is an important part of a healthy diet. The more kinds of meat, rice, and vegetables that people eat, the better. But he says that is not the case in Cambodia. Although diets are reasonably diverse, people eat tiny amounts of food. The lack of nutrients is sometimes called hidden hunger. It is especially a problem for children and women. The lack of vitamin B1 is common, and very young babies can die quickly if they lack B1. Mr. Green's team solved the problem by adding vitamin B1 to fish sauce. They worked on a $3 million project called Fish on Farms, involving 900 poor families. The goal was to improve nutrition by diversifying their food intake. They helped 300 families establish vegetable gardens. Another 300 got vegetable gardens and ponds in which to raise fish. The remaining 300 families, the control group, got nothing. After 3 years, the families with both fish ponds and vegetable gardens were doing better than those who only had vegetable gardens. All 600 families were doing better than the control group. Now, the program has been expanded to 4,500 poor families in 4 provinces with the help of the nonprofit group Helen Keller International. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans. From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. Experts estimate that 1 out of every 5 fish sold was caught illegally. They say $23.5 billion in illegal fish are sold each year. Illegal fishing threatens food security and hurts the environment. Now, officials are using new observational technology to fight it. Tony Long heads the Ending Illegal Fishing program for Pew Charitable Trusts. The program is called Project Eyes on the Seas. Large 3-dimensional images of a globe can be seen on a video that plays behind him. The screen shows 120,000 fishing boats that have an automated information system, or AIS. It is required technology for ships. But those who are fishing illegally often turn theirs off. Project Eyes on the Seas combines satellite information with secret government records on every ship's past activities. Mr. Long says that permits investigators to understand exactly where the fishing boats are operating. The Pew team gives the information to port officials. It helps them decide whether to take action against a ship. Tony Long says he wants to be able to provide information to port officials all over the world. Officials could then decide which ships should be banned or need inspection. The Pacific island nation of Palau was an early user of the technology. Palau has one of the richest fishing areas in the world and wants to protect it. Last year, it announced a plan to ban commercial fishing in a 630,000 square kilometer area. KB Sakuma is a special advisor to Palau's president. He says Palau is trying to deal with a recent increase in illegal and unreported fishing. Mr. Sakuma hopes the project will help Palau fight fishing piracy. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans. From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. People around the world benefit from large-scale food production. Many people can buy many fruits and vegetables throughout the year that were once sold for only a few months. But there is a price to pay for this year-round availability. The fruits and vegetables, like tomatoes, carrots, and strawberries, often do not taste as good as they once did. Researchers throughout the United States are working to change that. Andrew Mace is a professional cook at a restaurant in Portland, Oregon. Mr. Mace says he hopes the researchers can create fruits and vegetables that are easy to ship and store, but that also taste good. Across the United States, breeders, farmers, seed producers, and professional cooks are working together to create vegetables that have more flavor and more vitamins too. Breeders are people who create and grow plants for production. Jim Myers is a plant breeder at Oregon State University. He says many genetic differences are available. He tries to create fruits and vegetables that taste good, but also have resistance to disease, can be stored for a long time, and can be shipped without being damaged. Mr. Myers says the lab has created a program to connect breeders with chefs. He says developers are going back to their traditional roots as breeders to improve vegetables. Phil Simon is a vegetable breeder at the U.S. Agricultural Research Service. He says the local food movement in North America and other places is responsible for the increased interest in the flavor of fruits and vegetables. Mr. Simon says local growers are seeking to provide new varieties of vegetables to meet the demand of buyers. For VOA Learning English, I'm Jonathan Evans.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. American Billy Davis has been keeping bees since the 1960s. He has followed the sharp drop in the number of honeybees across the country. 2 years ago, he set up a non-profit group called the Sustainable Honeybee Program. It is developing stronger bees and teaching beekeepers how to strengthen their bee colonies. Brenda Kiesling volunteers with the Sustainable Honeybee Program. She says that without bees pollinating trees and plants, we would not have 1/3 of the food humans need. Experts say more than 1/3 of the honeybees are disappearing. Their disappearance could be from a combination of things like climate change, parasitic organisms, and chemicals used in agriculture. On the national level, Americans are trying different ways to stop the drop in bees. They include restricting the use of chemical pesticides and reestablishing conditions in nature for plant pollinators. The Sustainable Honeybee Program works with the bees themselves. The program operates a farm with more than 50 bee colonies. One condition needed for survival is hygienic behavior, the ability to identify and remove diseased bees from the colony. Alex McClellan is the group's chief operations officer. He says the group has breeding programs for producing queen bees and sharing them with local beekeepers. He says these hygienic honeybees will be able to recognize threats to the colony and take corrective action. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball.